As the founder of the Byrom projects, we give you a story for Easter. It is a story of 400 years ago, in fact, the story of Francis Bacon. The name William Shakespeare is a name known worldwide. It is a unique brand name associated with the authorship of the 16th and 17th century plays and writings of the named author. Currently, commemorative celebrations are noting the 400th year of the publication of the first folio of the complete collection of the plays. This was in 1623. Since then, other named contemporary writers have been thought to have been the actual pen of William Shakespeare. And this is by well-primed scholars and writers through the centuries. What I am going to tell you today is a story for Easter, as I've said, and this is to do with Francis Bacon. To do that, I am going to introduce you to a painting that came my way in the early 2000s. I received a letter through the post from somebody who had been to a lecture that I had given in London on behalf of the Research into Lost Knowledge organisation. This painting was sent as photographs to me at, as I say, in the early 2000s. As soon as I saw it, I thought, there are features about this that are familiar to me. Obviously, they were not familiar to the owner of the painting, who had sent the photographs to me. I'm going to introduce you to that painting because I think it's quite unique. It is the story, it's what you call an allegory, and therefore when you look at it, and I would like you to be able to share it with me, and this will appear on your screen. If we look at the top section of the painting, you will see it is of the Nativity. And this is why I would like you to share this story today at Easter time. If you look at the lady in the bed, she is obviously the Virgin Mary. And you have a baby in the cradle, and then you have the Joseph figure at the end of the bed. Now, Joseph was a carpenter. But if you look at him closely, he is not, he's weaving something from a thread. And in fact, he's telling a story actually. And if you were to look at the next section, the middle section, you will see that there is, in fact, quite a different story there. This is at a different period in time. In the middle section, you have a boat which is really not a boat at all. It's really a shuttle. And so you have the Joseph figure weaving a tale with the use of the shuttle. When I started to look at it very carefully, and of course I have done, I've spent years on this story, you can see all kinds of connections and related incidents to do with these three periods in history. because this is what it is. The Joseph figure is highlighting and attracting our attention to what is happening on the boat, really. And if you look at the boat picture, you will see that you have youth standing at the helm, and you have a figure with her hands cowed behind her ears. Actually, it is a lady. And then you have another figure with her arms outstretched, appealing to the youth at the helm. And if you look at those very closely, they are, the middle section is appealing to the top section for some reason. And then if we look at the bottom section, you have the apocalyptic horses, and if you look at one of the figures of that apocalyptic group of riders, you will see that they're wearing the same green as the youth at the helm of the boat. And also, if you look at the top section, you will see centered at the bottom of the bed a blanket which is in the same color. Now, all these colored greens are linked together in that they're trying to say that this is a story that you can't separate one facet from the other. The actual green is a unifying colour that does actually bind them together. And so you have in the top figure the babe, Jesus, and you have the Joseph figure, and you have then the boat, the shuttle in the middle section, with the youth appealing to the, I think he's appealing to the Virgin Mary figure in bed. And also you can't separate it from the bottom picture of the apocalyptic horses, where you have the rider dressed in the same green. Now, this green is a very important part of the story because it's the colour of the House of Tudor. And this painting is really the story of Francis Bacon. We have to consider it really very seriously. If I was to have to give a personal description of this painting, as I really think it, I would have to say that the nativity scene at the top bears a different kind of interpretation. It really is of the Virgin Mary, and Queen Elizabeth at one stage in her life was referred to as the Virgin Queen. And really what we're seeing is that she produced a babe, and that babe is the person at the helm of the boat, the shuttle, who is really Francis Bacon. And he was denied his own, the fact that he was the son of the Elizabeth I. And then, of course, we have the Joseph figure at the edge of the bed, who is really supposed to be a carpenter, but is really Leicester spinning a yarn. And Leicester, of course, is by some experts, literary experts, described as having gone through a marriage with Queen Elizabeth in their younger days. And he really is the father of Francis Bacon. And Francis Bacon was adopted by Anne Bacon, who is really the figure with the outstretched arms, appealing to her adoptive son, who is also with arms outstretched, appealing to his own parents to recognise him. And that's what all this is about. And then we have the cowed lady in the middle, who is really Lady Scales, who had been boxed around the ears by the Queen because she was gossiping in the court circles, and the Queen came across her doing that and challenged her about it in a not very pleasant way. And of course Bacon came to know about this and challenged his mother, and she was not very pleased with him for taking the side, as she thought, of the young tittle-tattling court girls. And that is this story that is depicted in the middle of that painting. Good Friday was on the 9th of April in 1626, and the official records of Francis Bacon's death are for the 9th of April 1626. Actually, if you look at this painting, although he is said to have died on that day, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, and this is why I'm telling this story today, he did not die on that particular Easter weekend. He, in fact, went and was taken to the 12 Brothers' house in Nuremberg. At the bottom of this painting is a statement in German which says that this is a story of the 12 Brothers' house in Nuremberg. This is where I think that Bacon went that weekend. He was taken to the 12 Brothers' house. Now, why should it be the 12 Brothers' house in Nuremberg? Bacon did have shares. He was one of the main shareholders in the brassworks of Tintern in Monmouthshire, Wales. He was a main shareholder there at that time, and the brassworks had been opened in 1568, and some of the engineers that came to educate and to teach the locals were from Nuremberg. And a plaque can be seen in front of the wall of the Tintern Abbey, the famous Tintern Abbey, which commemorates that date of 1568. Now, the reason why this story has to be told, although I've given the story of the painting, I've told you that really I wanted to share with you facets to do with the first folio. Now, the first folio was dedicated to the 3rd and 4th Earls of Pembroke. The 3rd and 4th Earls of Pembroke owned a section of Tintern where the brassworks were, and also they were the patrons of St. Michael's Church. Now, St. Michael's Church is, for my opinion, is where Francis Bacon is buried. I think that Francis Bacon is buried in the chancel of St. Michael's Church, and if one was to look at Sonnet 72, one would see on one of the lines that it does actually say that my name is buried where my body is. If one was to look at the commemorative stone, which is 33 metres from the actual chancel, you would see on it a sword that has in its in the part of the sword that is the handle 4 C's, and they are definitely C's because you can see the blob. It's not a broken circle, it's a C, and there are 4 C's there, and that the C stands for centum in Latin, and centum stands for 100. And I think that we have 4 C's there, and that is to say that you've got the equivalent of 400. And it could be said, of course, that that is the commemorative number of years of the first folio. And I have to say that I came across a book by a man by the name of Edward Johnson that actually had decoded the first folio of plays and found in it the basic code name that the whole of the code was based on, and it is the word shuttle. And that is the actual shuttle that we have in the illustration. And so that is supposed to have appeared only once in the whole of the Shakespeare plays. And it's said by Falstaff in The Merry Wives of Windsor. When I first saw this, I thought, who is this man that can say that? What sort of a person can actually isolate one word and say that it only appears once in the whole of the first folio of plays? I needed to look at this man and to find out what makes him tick, because it was a very bold statement to make, but it did coincide with the painting that I had been asked to look at. And so Edward Johnson became a focus of my attention and my research. And I have to say that I collected all his books. I found out all the books that he'd written, and I was so impressed by what I saw that I wanted to know even more about him. Apparently he was a solicitor, and he was the son of a solicitor, and knowing their legal responsibilities, no way would a man like that in his position declare a statement like that if he didn't believe it to be true. And so actually I managed to get, I wanted to know what had happened to all his researches, and I did manage to see a copy of his will, and when I saw it I was absolutely stunned, because he left all his work, all his research work, to the Bacon Society that was meeting in Canterbury Towers at the time. And I actually felt that this man was genuine. And so really, when I put that alongside the painting and my interpretation with the shuttle in the middle of the painting, it seems to me that Bacon was a very singular individual. He was responsible and was the centre of the painting, and Nuremberg and Tinton and the church figured very, very largely in his lifestyle. So I thought, well, now I wonder what has happened to his work and what was thought about him in a contemporary state, in his world at the time of when he was living. He died in the 1960s, and what did I discover? But the author, Alfred Dodd, who wrote the definitive life story, personal life story of Francis Bacon, dedicated his work to Edward Johnson. And that said a lot to me. So, with all due respect, I then felt that I needed to at least let the Bacon Society, as it is today, know that I had checked this out, and did so. Francis Bacon, in my opinion, manufactured his own demise around the Easter weekend of 1626, and he would have been years of age, and he is supposed to have died as a result, and this is the official statement that appeared in the press, that he was conducting an experiment of ice and freezing and frozen chickens, and he caught a chill and it killed him. And that was the statement that was publicly in the newspapers at the time, something like that anyway. Now, the point is, he knew exactly what he was doing. He linked his own demise with the Christian calendar of the death of Christ. And therefore, it is linked with the picture, the allegorical picture that we've been talking about. Because at the top of that picture is the virgin birth with the Virgin Mary and the carpenter at the end of the bed and the babe in the cradle. And so, really speaking, you can actually think very carefully about this, because it is no accident that he actually disappeared at that time. It was very, very carefully constructed. And also one has to link it with the Edward Johnson's interpretation of the first folio, where he selects the key code of the shuttle as a basis for the decoding of the first folio. Now, that is no accident. That is not an accident. It is very, very carefully calculated. And I have a copy of the Francis Bacon's Maze, copy of the code, and Edward Johnson analysed all the plays and was able to show and demonstrate his method and the method that was used in the construction of the first folio. Now, as I say, that Alfred Dodd, who was a known Baconian scholar, dedicated his work to Edward Johnson. And therefore I would suggest, and we should think very carefully about the authorship of the Shakespeare plays. Francis Bacon is the centre of the creation of these worldwide plays. An additional quirk to the use of the word shuttle, numerology played a very, very large part in the intellectual perceptions of number to these people, and it had been to certain people for centuries. But if we add the numerology, numbers to the word shuttle, you will find, and we will find, or you would find, that it adds up to 100. And if one was to use that same word and the number symbolism for shuttle and applied it to Francis Bacon, his name also adds up to 100. I think that the number symbolism is absolutely critical for the interpretation of the author of the plays, whose keystone or the key for its uses in analysing it is the shuttle, which is really Francis Bacon. Everything points to him, and this is why I am doing this today. I want to share it with you because I think it's really, really unique in the handling of what must be one of the world's greatest volumes of literature, and really needs to be known about. I think Edward Johnson's work is extremely clever, But now I have to take the numerology a stage further. And we have to think of the dedicatee of the first folio, one of whom was the 3rd Earl of Pembroke, and his brother later, Philip, who took over from him at his demise. Now, I need to talk about that demise of the dedicatee of the first folio, the 3rd Earl of Pembroke, because celebrating his 50th birthday at a dinner party at Fisher's Folly in London. When was he celebrating it? On the 9th of April. And during the dinner, he announced that his own demise had been forecast for that day. And he declared that he was in very good health. And what happened? He returned home after his dinner and died in the early hours of the 10th of April. So he was celebrating again on the 9th of April the dedicatee of the first folio, who was the patron of that church in Tinton, where I think Bacon was buried. He died in the early hours of the 10th of April, but really after a dinner on the 9th. So here we have the 9th of April again, and somebody who was absolutely dedicated to literature. He was very, very interested in the literature of the day, the Elizabethan plays, and he died on the 9th of April. So what we have is the people of that period, the great and the good, and those that were interested, were extremely interested in numerology, number symbolism, and it could be said that one wonders how else it was being used, and who else knew about it. And it's called sacred geometry. There's a lot of it, and a lot of it is based on Pythagorean geometry. And as I have said in my books, the globe theatre is based on the same new number symbolism. The new globe should be based on the number 72, a frame of 72 again. And so all this is a pointer to something. And I have to say that my attention was drawn to even space travel, and really the Tree of Life, which is again based on or could be based on the same number symbolism that we've been talking about during this short sharing. And I really would just like to address one feature, because the 9th of April in the Messenger book figures so much. There's so many anniversaries that are either celebrated on that day or known about for that particular number. If we think about the 9 times table, it is absolutely unique. It's unique of its kind, because as a child, if one learns 9 times table, everything adds up to 9 in that table. 1 9 is 9, 2 9s are 18, 8 and 1 is 9, 3 9s are 27, and 7 and 2 is 9, and 4 9s are 36, etc. And you could go on. I have drawings in the Byrom collection which say the true rule is 9. It's written on the drawings, and that is to do with the globe sequence of drawings that I identified as part of the design of the globe. And 369 is a rule for it. And here you have 3 and 9, 39, no 6. But Bacon's code is based, according to Edward Johnson, on 6. And so numbers figure very, very largely in the whole of this analysis. I had become the licensee to a collection of geometric drawings, numbering well over 500. And these drawings were absolutely extraordinary. And my attention had been drawn by a correspondent from America to the likelihood of them being connected with the crop circles. This was little known to me at the time, and I had recognized the use of Pythagorean geometry as applied philosophically by Hermes, the messenger of the gods. Many of the drawings can also be applied to the mystery surrounding the mystery of crop circles. The matching of some of them is uncanny. It is as though the fields act as an open theatre of the world, using numeracy through the seasons and laws of nature as silent information. They seem to be messages for those who have the understanding. As it is above, so it is below. Their precision demonstrates a perfection of sorts. This was something that I had not recognized, but my attention was drawn to them by this American correspondent who earnestly requested that I should study them very, very carefully. Remembering this understanding, I want to share today a crop circle that appeared towards the end of the last crop season of 2023. It was sighted as in Hatherden Lane in Hampshire on the 25th of July. Number 9 has figured largely in the story I have recounted today. The crop circle features 3 sets of 9 circles. As a set piece, very difficult to set out accurately, especially at ground level. I choose to think that it has been created from above, a form of perfection of sorts for everyone to recognize. The qualities are inherent in the number 9. It is a unification of its own. Now, how is it possible that that can be reproduced in a field during a season, the crop circle, yes, of 2023? It was one of the last crop circles that appeared in that circle. I choose to think it is part of God's will. I choose to think it is infinite. I choose to think that if you understand the use of the number 9, it is something that cannot be reproduced. And yet it was. It was reproduced in the south of England as a structure in a field. And I am reminded of the use of the number 9 throughout my work and throughout the geometric drawings, and also on the death of Francis Bacon on April the 9th, and also the 3rd Earl of Pembroke on his 50th birthday celebration on the 9th of April. And also there could be said to be, if one looks at my book, The Messenger, one will see other instances, not least that the person who visited me from America to draw my attention to some features of geometric drawings and sent me actually 9 windows. I call them 9 windows. If you look at the allegory, you will see the Virgin Mary was leaning on a pillow with 9 windows, 9 features, sorry. It is a number that is, as I say, magical. And I think if the general public, if we understood it is a binding number, it binds us all together. This 9-pointed crop circle is there for the understanding of everybody. I don't think it was man-made, and therefore I think it has its own spirituality and is a godly image and is there for everyone. And everybody, if they understand such things, can be loving and kind and generous, is there for everybody and for everybody to understand. And really, that is what I want to share with you today on behalf of the Byrom projects. Thank you for watching.